During this grotesque night in 1977, 9 bodies were found beaten, stabbed, and engulfed in flames. Hey listeners, welcome back to this episode of Crime-Mates with Allie Hurlburt
and Emma DelVecchio.
Today we are back in the studio, diving deep into the Lorne Acquin murders.
Now this crime happened in Prospect, Connecticut in 1977, and it involved the Bowdoin family household.
Which is absolutely crazy to me because it's only 23 minutes from us in Orange, Connecticut. It really makes you question who's out there this close to home. Okay, so now let's debrief these cold hard facts.
So this happened in the middle of the night around 4 a.m. and the neighbors smelled the smoke and reported it.
Dang, that's impressive that they smelled the fire. I don't think that I'd ever wake up to that and be like, I smell a fire.
Well, the Prospect and Bethany fire departments came to help and stopped the spread fairly quickly. However, when they entered the house, they found 9 bodies. The Bowdoin mother, her 7 children, and a cousin. Some hands bound, others feet, all dead.
That poor cousin, if only he hadn't slept over that night.
Yeah, well, Acquin was hanging out with the Bowdoin family earlier in the day, and his car was seen still even after he left.
Lorne's seeming a little suspicious at this point. How heartless of him to spend the entire day with them and then decide, well, I think they deserve to die. Like, what? Anyway, so Emma, let's hear what Acquin claimed to have happened. What is his side of the story?
So, his confession, he claimed that he took the children to pick raspberries that night at 7 p.m., left, and then came back around 2 a.m. He then entered through an unlocked door he knew was unlocked previously.
Oh my gosh.
And then Cheryl, the mother, found him in the kitchen, and he claimed he just needed to grab a wrench, but then also asked her to have a drink with him.
Okay, but shouldn't Cheryl have been a little suspicious if her step-brother-in-law came over, 1, to get a wrench in the middle of the night, and 2, for a beer in the middle of the night? Like, who does that? I guess only Cheryl.
Yeah, well, as she reached for the beer, Acquin hit her over the head with a wrench over and over until the sun wandered in on them.
Oh no!
And he too was beaten.
I feel like I'm watching like a bad horror movie saying, no, don't go in, don't go.
Well, then Acquin went and killed all the other children, or beat them at least, with his wrench and now a tire iron.
Whoa, where did this tire and iron come into play?
I don't know, but after he beat all these children, he went back to the kitchen because he heard Cheryl making sounds, and he finished her off by stabbing her.
Jeez.
He tied some children with strings by the wrists, others by their ankles. He sexually molested one of the younger girls, and as if that wasn't enough, he doused everyone in gasoline and lit the house on fire.
As if it wasn't bad enough to get beaten and tied, he really had to go the step further and light them on fire. He must have really had no heart, especially since he hung out with them that whole day. Oh my gosh.
And then he went ahead and claimed that he doesn't remember this night much, or even confessing the story. That perfectly matched up with other reports and police assumptions.
Seems like Acquin got himself into a little bit of a pickle. So, Emma, what was Lorne's life story? What was this guy all about?
We don't know much about him, but we know he acted alone in this case. His foster brother was Mr. Bowdoin, the father of this family, who wasn't present for the murders because he was working the night shift at his job. But he was thought to have a decent relationship with the kids, as Lorne hung out with them often, visited, and took them on outings like their raspberry picking just that night.
Interesting. So what do we know about the Bowdoin family?
We know that Cheryl, the mother, 7 children, and 1 cousin that stayed the night were all killed. Whether some died through beating, the mother died through stabbing, or some had a combination of their injuries and smoke inhalation that did them in. Plus, 1 girl was sexually assaulted, and there were no survivors. So now I'm wondering, Allie, how did people respond to this incident?
Well, law enforcement became involved fairly quickly. Police officers came when the neighbors smelled the smoke coming from their house and immediately put out the fire. Once the fire was put out, they investigated the burnt home and they found the 9 bodies and all of their injuries. Law enforcement questioned many suspects the next day, including Lorne. And when questioned, Lorne seemed to open up fairly quickly about what he thought had happened.
It's almost like the guilt was eating him away. Unfortunately, we found out during the trial that he seemed to have decided that he was going to change the story that he previously opened up about what happened that night. This definitely cast some doubt among people because while many were sure it was Lorne, some evidence now pointed against it. For one, Lorne claimed he did not really confess and that he can't remember the night of the murders. Through this logic, he felt it should not be used as evidence against him, even though the story matched up perfectly with what investigators found.
Now, how did that work out for him?
Not very well. Now, there were also claims that he was mentally ill. The fingerprints at the scene did not match his. Lorne was truly upset and reacted negatively when he was informed about the murders and more. But despite all of this contradicting evidence, in the end, the jury still felt it was him and gave him his sentence. So while there's still probably an ounce of doubt in people's minds, if it was truly him, the court decided it was.
Based on these facts, there's no doubt in my mind it wasn't him.
Now, the one part that trips me up is that there are no known motives. Nothing that Lorne held against his family or anything really. I feel this is the most confusing part of the case.
I heard a theory that Lorne actually molested the young girl first and was caught by another family member. It's said that then he felt so ashamed of his actions that he didn't want a soul knowing what he did. So his only solution was to kill all of the witnesses. But this theory doesn't line up with what his original confession said, which doesn't make it a conclusive motive. And the media seems to agree with me. This case drew in a great deal of drama with news articles and statements flying around the state. Plus, due to the Lorne pleading not guilty and law enforcement having no motives in mind, people were considering this the worst mass murder in the history of Connecticut.
Now, I heard this is still considered one of the worst mass murders in Connecticut in 2022, alongside the Sandy Hook Elementary School shootings. And if I remember this right, Lorne was sentenced to 25 years per life, plus 20 years for arson, for a total of 105 years to life in prison.
As he should.
Now, do you have any updates on him and his case?
The only known updates are that he served his time from around 1979 until 2015 at the MacDougall Walker Correctional Institution. Later, he passed away from a brain bleed at the Yukon Health Center in Farmington, Connecticut. And since then, the crime has been mentioned in psychology books such as Human Paleopsychology, Applications to Aggression and Pathological Processes, written by Kent Bailey, and is even mentioned in some podcasts. For example, Crime Wives Episode 7 on June 19th, 2019, and our podcast, Crime Mates.
Now, to sum up, alongside the 9 murders, the beatings, the stabbings, and all, this is now considered one of the worst murders in Connecticut, and it's still bad from then to now. And while some were doubtful, Lorne was put away, and the crime is thought to be solved.
So, Emma, to end on a lighter note, since summer is coming up and the crime involves fire, how do you eat your s'mores? Do you like a lot of chocolate and burnt marshmallows? What does your perfect s'more look like?
I really like this transfer of discussion from murder to marshmallow.
Thank you.
My preferred s'more, though, is covered in chocolate with a darker golden, but not burnt, definitely not burnt marshmallow placed neatly on my graham cracker. How about you?
I 100% agree with you. I love a crispy marshmallow with some extra chocolate. Alrighty, that's it for today's episode of Crime Mates on the Lorne Acquin murders. We can't wait to discuss more with you next time. Bye.
Bye.